Okay, so in the previous lesson, we were able to use Android Studio already. And one of this is, of course, since we are into our initial programming already, we should know how to use the emulator. Okay, and that was what we have discussed last time. So for today, I will be discussing about, yeah, maybe we can start already using some uh, user interface components that are actually available in the Android Studio. And with this, the first template that we created was an empty activity view. Okay, and every time that you generate a new activity, like for example, we have here, I'm going to select the current package that we have, and I'm going to click on, yeah, right click. And if I'm going to create a new user interface, I would simply click on activity, and we have the empty views activity. Now, please do take note that every time I will create a new activity, okay, of course, I'll be specifying a new name. Let's say next activity, okay? And of course, we will be leaving the default uh, options here, like generate layout file. We could actually use the activity next, and we have also the source language, which is Java. So initially, the way we create also earlier the main activity that we currently have, if I click on finish, okay, so notice that each activity that I am creating does have an associated Java file. Okay, this is where we code all our logic and other stuff, and it has a corresponding layout also. Okay, so for every activity that you are generating, you will see here two files that are actually generated, much like also the first initial activity that we have, which is the main activity. Okay, and its uh, related layout file is activity main.xml. So every time we create an empty view, there are two major parts. It has an associated source code and an associated layout file. Okay, so let us now try to close other things that we will not be using yet. Okay, and going back to the main activity, for us to place a component inside, we would be needing to go to the layout. And since we will be working on the main activity here, okay, we will be choosing activity main. And you would see here a new window pane that would be displayed on your screen. Okay, we are having two views here, which is the design and the blueprint view. Okay, so basically class, the blueprint view contains the constraints that we have placed on a specific component. And for this design view, okay, this will display the natural view of what it would look like when the component was placed already, okay, on our layout. So for this, I'll be deleting hello world, okay, and maybe for a start, you might want also to switch to a blueprint only view, okay, or a design view. but I highly suggest to, if you have enough room in your screen, you might want to choose the design and blueprint. Okay. And so with the interface also, okay, so in this area, which is the palette, you would see the different components already that you could place inside the layout that we have. Okay, so for example, I would be placing a simple text view, okay, which we will be also studying further. So I would be placing here a text view right there. And for the text view, I'm sorry. So yeah, I think the best here is the text view. And we can zoom it also a little bit so that we could work on it. Okay, minimize other things and expand. Okay, and this is our text view. Notice that in our text view, we could also place another, yeah, maybe another text view here. Okay, and another plain text for entry. There you go. This is for uh, it's like an entry for a text. Now, when you have a form, now what you can do here, okay, let's say for example the initial name or the initial content of our uh, text here is Android. You would see here the different attributes that you could modify or properties, okay, for the component itself. And I would be placing here something like Android, okay, which stands for the initial text. And also the next text view here, maybe I would name it as welcome to Android. Okay, so it's a simple text, and below it maybe something like uh yeah, so welcome, I mean, better text would be uh yeah, like uh, Java programming, something like that. Okay, so as what you can see, when I replace the attributes, the text also has changed in our layout. Okay, and yeah, it seems like you can simply drag and drop the components so it would be arranged, but take a closer look. If I would be running this sample that we have, okay, and run it in the emulator, so it's currently building, so let's just wait for the output. Okay, there you go. So yeah, you would see here that they're all placed on a single location. Okay, even though we have placed already in accordance to the layout that you are seeing here on my screen, right? It is because it is not enough, okay, for the components to be arranged in the design view. Okay, you have this specific constraint layout, okay, that you need to modify for you to arrange your components. So for example, uh, we would like our welcome to Android text to be somehow relative to the edges of our layout so that we could have it centered. So what I'll be doing here is I'll be clicking this connection to the edge here, and now click the other side to the other edge of the layout, and we want it to be seen like something like it will begin at the top and some 80 pixels below it, no? So that's how we wanted it to be positioned. Okay, and let's now try to run the program and see what will happen. Okay, so it's still building and launching on devices, and yeah. Okay, so you would see now that somehow we were able to place the text view that we have for welcome as welcome to Android at the center of our screen. Okay, so let me stop the program and show you some other constraints that you could use. Perhaps you might want to place Java programming also in relation to the let's say for example to the component just above it. Okay, and if you wanted it to be centered, so you might want to grab the other side. Okay, so notice that it would adjust on itself, and maybe uh, let's say for example you might want to connect it also at the bottom of the first component and drag it something like they have a distance of 104 pixels. Okay, and yeah, there you go, we were able to arrange it already in relation to this relative to this component. So I'm going to click on run here and see what will happen. Okay, so look at the workflow that we have. We first create the activity and then we are now trying to place the components. Okay, and yes, so we were able to arrange our component, and the last one is the edit text. Okay, so with this, let me stop the program again since you know the workflow already. Okay, so I guess you could also from here add some guidelines. Okay, so this is an imaginary uh, ruler, no? So we have here, let's say for example, a horizontal guideline that we could use. Okay, so for the horizontal guideline, we can just place the guideline here something like it is 268 pixels from the top, and make our component here entry plain text component, okay, to be in relation to the horizontal guide that we created. Okay, same as the vertical guideline. Okay, so the vertical guideline we could arrange it also. Okay, and make our components in relation to the vertical guideline. Okay, so these are some of the techniques that you could use to arrange your screen. And now I'll be clicking on the play button here to see what would be the application will look like. And yeah, so it's launching, it's currently launching, and yes. Okay, so we were able to position the plain text component, okay, using the vertical and horizontal guidelines. So it's basically up to your creativity on how you would be placing this component. Okay, and the next thing that we wanted to do now maybe is to you know create a button so that we could demonstrate how do we handle events, okay, when we are responding or when we are interacting with the user interface. So in this example, what I'll be doing here is I'll be dragging a button here, somewhere here, and yeah, and by the use of the common attributes or the properties of that component, I would simply rename it to something like click me, okay, and have it positioned at the center of the plain text that we have. Okay, position it here and somewhere like, okay, somewhere like uh maybe, I think, yeah, um 80 pix or 84 pixels down. Okay, so yeah, so we have here already our position of the button, and as what you can see, for the view from the design against the blueprint. Okay, so you would see here also the component tree, and under the component tree, uh, it is very important to take note that each component that we are placing, okay, has this very important property called the ID, because this property, which is the ID, we actually use them, okay, to reference them in our program code. Okay, so it's very important to make our ID for each component descriptive. Okay, moreover, class, if you are accustomed already to XML, what we are doing actually, okay, is that you can actually see the XML code, okay, for the interface that we have created. So if you are well versed with how XMLs work and the attributes of the Android component that you are using, okay, uh, you could modify the XML instead of the design view, okay, which sometimes for others it's faster to, you know, modify the XML itself. Like for example, we have here the button click me. Okay, if you wanted to change, okay, the properties of the button itself, okay, and let's say change again click me to button, okay, you would see on the design, okay, that it would automatically change to button. So it's basically the same, much like modifying the attributes that you are seeing on the on this window pane. Okay, and anyway, I'll change it back to click me. All I wanted to discuss right now is that uh, you can also modify the XML representation of the design that we are working on. Okay, and as what I've said, uh, since you know already how to place the components into your design view using the blueprint, and you know already how to I mean use components or drag components also. Okay, the next thing that we wanted to do now is uh, we wanted, well, I wanted to show you how do we respond to the events for a particular component. Okay, and as what I've said, when we want to programmatically modify what behavior, I mean, programmatically modify the behavior of the application using the component, we have to reference that particular component using its ID. Okay? And so that is what we are going to do. So maybe we could just rename this to something like click button. Okay, that's the name of our ID for this button. And once the button is clicked, okay, what we will be doing next is, let's say we wanted to retrieve what was actually written. So uh, let's now try to click on the factor, and we wanted to retrieve what text has been inputted in this text field that we have. And so we would change the ID to something like text entry, okay, field, something like that. And another refactor message will then appear once we have changed this. So we'll just have to click on refactor. Okay, so notice on the component tree that when you change an ID for a particular component, it will reflect also on the component tree. And you can rename it yourself here. Okay, so I would press right click, and yeah, so I could just rename. Yeah, it's refactor, and no, I don't think so. We cannot rename it here. If I'm going to press F2, organize, center, convert, refactor, nah, I think we'll just have to rename it uh, in the attributes pane. Okay, and now let's now go to how do we respond to the event. So the next thing that we will be doing, of course, since we know the ID already, which is click button and the text view, okay, we are now ready to code some things, okay, and to respond to a specific event, okay, much like the button. There are many ways actually, and we just wanted it for the meantime to be simple. Okay, so there's this what you call uh, inner classes, or you could just use uh, or implement an action listener. So I guess you are, if you are familiar with the Java Swing package, then I guess you could easily relate it on how you used action listeners. But for the meantime, although we have different methods of handling events, this this thing that I would show you is the most simplest one. Okay, so all we have to do is to create a method, okay, that will be called once the button was clicked, and I will just name it as public void button click. Okay, so this is a custom name, and it should have a view class Android view as a parameter. Okay, and let's say just name it as argument. Okay, but of course this would generate an error simply because we have to include it in our import statements. Okay, and we just have to import the class, and automatically it's here already. Okay, and once we are done with that, no, uh, since we wanted to uh, what do you call this, we wanted to detect once the button is clicked. Okay, so all we have to do is to click the button. Okay, and notice here that there is a property called I think it's here, it's yeah, on all attributes. I'm sorry, I have to look for it. I'm sure it's here. Okay, so this is our button, and maybe it's here. Uh, we'll just have to go to the it's on click property. Yeah, it's inside all attributes, and just select the appropriate method that you have created. Okay, and automatically it will be binded to that method that you have created. So if you're going to look on the XML code, okay, let's try to look on the code. Notice here that you could also modify, okay, uh, the button here, okay, to support the on click property with the name of your method. Okay, so yeah, I think we were able to bind it with our button. And what we wanted to do next class, okay, is to get the text that is currently on this text entry field. Okay, so using the text entry field, one of the technique here is, because since we wanted to reference this object in our program, we need an appropriate class for this one. And as what you can see from our XML code, which is after I have clicked the entry field here, okay, notice that the edit text class is highlighted, and that is the class that we are going to use in our program. Okay, so going back to main activity, it's now time to reference the class that we saw actually in the XML code that we have. So let's try using edit text. Okay, it's existing, it's an Android widget. And what we wanted to do next, of course, let's try to include it in our import. Okay, so yeah, let's just import the class, and automatically it's imported. And the next thing that we wanted to do is to provide a reference variable, like the text, okay, is equal to, we have a what do you call this, method, which is find view by ID. Okay, and what we will be placing here is the ID, the ID name that we have customized for this button. Okay, and that is actually the click button ID. You would also see it all here also in the attributes. Okay, so notice that we replaced the ID name. And for us to reference this in our program, we could simply say r dot uh, yeah, r dot id, okay, dot click button. Okay, so we have here click button. And of course, if we are going to look also, okay, on the uh, yeah, on the text entry field that we have placed, okay, so using the design view, so we have the text, we have the, we grabbed a plain text. Okay, so all we have to do is to typecast, okay, to typecast the result, okay, as an edit text. Okay, so yeah, I think that is the way we were able unexpected cast to edit text. Cast to, no, no, it's a button, I'm sorry. Yeah, because it's a button. What what I am referring is the, I'm sorry about that, no? But what we wanted to do here is to, yeah, get the text entry field, okay? And what instead of the click button, okay, what we wanted to do is to get the text entry field, okay? And once we did get the text entry field, all we need to do is to retrieve the text. Okay, so we have here string str is equal to text dot, okay, get text, okay, but we have to extract the string equivalent. And so if we wanted to display it in the view, well, we could use toast. Okay, it's an Android widget uh, that we could use to display a message. And yeah, it's static. We could use the make text. Okay, then it's a static method, and all we have to do is to get the application context, then the string that we wanted to use, and use the constant, then the show method, and let's see if this will work. So I'm going to stop my previous program, then run the program that we have right now. Okay, let's just wait for it to load. And there you go, this is our program. And if I will be replacing this with my name, it should display. Okay, so that's my name, and I'll be clicking, already clicked me, and there you go. Yeah, so okay, so let me summarize the workflow that we did for this application program. So first, we did try to place some components inside. Okay, so you might want to select the appropriate widgets that you will be using for your application. Then second, of course, you have to arrange them somehow by the use of constraints, and with this we tried to use blueprint. Okay, and third, okay, you might want to modify some important attributes for the components, especially for those components that you will reference from your code. And the important property there is what we call the ID. Okay, you could modify it on the attribute window pane, or modify it right away in your XML file. Okay, and once you are done with that, you are now ready to code for that particular event, and all you have to do is to create a normal method or regular method with no return value, but it should have a parameter of view. Okay, and you'll need to reference this method to the component, okay, where it will respond to. So in our case here, we have placed that component in the on click property of our button. And when we reference now our components in our program, we simply use the ID using the command find view by ID. Okay, and typecasting it to its appropriate class. Okay, and you could get a hint by simply looking at the XML file. If you are not yet well versed about the widget classes, you could always look at the XML, and the XML itself will give you the class that will be used for you to retrieve the components reference. Okay, so I do hope that with this tutorial, okay, you were able to learn how you arrange your components and reference them in your program through the ID. Okay,